Peace, family. Welcome to My Aunt Speaks, and my name is Leah Kenyatta. Welcome to today's second episode of My Aunt Wednesdays. So we will continue discussing how to build unity within our communities using the principles of Ma'at. So today's principle is justice. Again, I will be reading from the book, The 14 Keys, Power, Unity, and Success Unlocked by Chief Yoa. We are exploring self-transformation and how to develop a code and culture in order to construct an environment and community that benefits the collective. So if you have not listened to the first video of My Aunt Wednesdays, where we talked about truth, I would suggest that you go and listen to that video first and then come back to this video. So again, Ma'at. Ma'at is the Neteret, or goddess of divine order, truth, and balance, and justice. Most of us know Ma'at as balance because if we achieve the 7 principles of Ma'at in our daily lives, it will bring balance and order into our lives so that we can reclaim who we are and make the most of our lives. So it is a guide on how to live our life. So remember, the 42 principles or confessions of Ma'at help us to go on our own internal journey. So we identify and refine the areas where we need to improve the most so that we can take action consciously in order to manifest in the subconscious and conscious world. Again, as we align, I talked about this in the last video when we talked about truth. As we align, this may bring chaos. And chaos exists. Chaos happens because it's aligning us, bringing that structure, that order, and that foundation into our lives. Just like chaos may happen before you complete a big project. So it happens in order to get that structure that you need. But understand, if chaos still exists within your project or within your life, then that balance is not there yet. That structure is not there yet. But it is something that is important. It's an important step into creating that structure and foundation. So also remember that Ma'at teaches us to look inwardly and rise each day and judge ourselves accordingly. So as we rise and before we rest each day, we look within ourselves and ask ourselves some questions. Have I lived up to my own moral code? Or have I lived up to a moral code that someone else has told me to live by? Have I lived up to a moral code from another culture that is foreign to my own moral code? In the moral code that I'm living by, is it helpful to the continuation of the universe, this planet, your family, your community, your tribe? So oftentimes when referring to Ma'at, or if you have seen the scene of Ma'at, you will see the symbol of 2 scales and a feather. So this depicts weighing your heart against a feather. So what does this mean? This is your judgment into the afterlife, your judgment at death. But understand that in African spirituality and in most other spiritual practices, death is not the end, right? It's the beginning of another journey. So death ends one journey and it's the beginning of another journey. So at the end of the journey, which we call death, you face judgment and your heart is weighed on a scale against a feather. This will let you know whether you will have to do this life again or come back to earth and do it all over again, Or if you fulfilled your purpose in this lifetime, then you can ascend to the afterlife and become immortal. So something you ask yourself at judgment or even each day. Each day we take judgment upon ourselves and you ask yourself, am I or did I live a life of righteousness? So in essence, did you achieve ma'at? And if so, at judgment, when your heart is weighed on a scale against that feather, your heart should be as light as a feather. So side note here, this is where the current justice system, aka the European justice system, got their idea of justice. And you'll often see the woman with scales. And so this is a reinterpretation of Ma'at. And also the 10 Commandments coming from the Ma'atic principles or the 42 confessions. And those also are reinterpretations. And so often we know that reinterpretations leave out vital parts, vital information. So anyway, let's continue talking about justice. Often we look at justice only from a negative viewpoint. For example, someone commits a crime and we attempt to seek justice for that crime, right? We want justice for our family member or something that has happened to us. So we usually go through the legal system, right? On the other hand, justice also means to give someone what they are due. So if they did something good for you or your family or community, justice tells us to give that person what they are due in return. So that can be money, land, something of value. So it's important to understand that balance is only achieved if justice is achieved. Balance is only achieved if justice is achieved. So you can see that this is one of the reasons that our community is in a constant state of flux. Time and time again, we are not achieving or we are not receiving justice in our communities. And this causes the scale to continue to tip over. So let us continue discussing the Ma'atic principles and let's learn more about justice. So from the book of the 14 Keys, Power, Unity, and Success Unlocked by Chief Yua. Justice. Reward or punishment. Justice defines. Just ice. To serve just ice would be a delivering of a stilling, non-transforming demise. Due to this, we will use the term even-handedness as a healthier, a new interchange. Justice is an administration of law. Law is the contour of a commanding order. In order for the law to be applicable to an individual or group, the path or paths to the supreme have to be wholeheartedly agreed on. There also must be an agreement on a calculation of law that holds jurisdiction over those who have contracted with it. Justice is a concept that invites great debate based on its interference to a changeable chain of command and rule of law. As there are many ways of organizing an individual based on the contemplated values instilled from a divine rootage, there are many different laws. From person to person, you may even find laws or a sense of morality that are contrasting in nature. This is not inherently problematic. Ultimately, one must do what works best towards the actualization of their pursuit. That mission will be defined and framed by the concept a person holds of their most supreme presence. Equability differs from individual to individual. If there were one global assent on the nature of the divine and its place in the lives of those on earth, there would be only one law. This does not negate those time-held principles that we consider to be ubiquitous. If we look across a span of societies, religions, and folklores, we will find certain principles that seem to live within and at the core of many different people. At the source, the aim of justice or even-handedness should be peace. Peace is one of the most universal concepts incarnate in the ambition of all beings on the planet. Peace is not synonymous with serenity, but rather is more closely related to character identification. In a society bent on arresting the development and growth of natural incarnate beings, a new debauched sense of justice becomes the operating prerequisite. Even-handedness is a means of directing individuals towards what would relatively be considered high morality. For example, if one says cleanliness is next to godliness, the conclusion would infer that a clean person is closer to the highest authority in all existence than an unclean one. Would the same be deduced for organisms that thrive and develop in unhygienic environments? Would they serve a different creator? Or would their justice or even-handedness be characteristic to their biological environment? This demonstrates the changing relativity of justice's judgment. Even-handedness provides the rewards and punishments associated with discriminating actions. It is the method that the cause and effect axiom are delivered through. This idea of cause and effect, or give and take, connect us to the ma'atic concept of reciprocity. Through our acceptance of rewards and punishments, we accept external definition. The type of reciprocal cause and effect that we experience becomes the character of not only our reciprocity, but also our supreme reality. This is the end of the chapter. Next week, during Ma'at Wednesdays, we will discuss the principle reciprocity. Again, if you would like your own copy of Chief Yua's book, the link is in the description. So family, comment below and give me your thoughts on justice and how you think we can achieve justice in our communities. Peace, family. See you next time.